Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey. Welcome back.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
So today we will be doing my mid-October wrap-up.
I know I have a huge cold sore on my lip. Please don't comment about it.
I completely got this idea from Ash at A Bookish Realm and Becca from Becca and the Books. So I will leave a link down below to their channels, but they're the ones I saw doing two-part wrap-ups, and I find that that's really helpful, especially because I've been reading so much lately. So today I have 5 books here that I'm going to wrap up for you. So what I've been doing with my last wrap-up videos is giving you some stats, so I'll keep those to the end of the month so that we get a full picture then. But here are the 5 books that I read. The first book that I finished in the month of October was Carrie by Stephen King. This basically follows a girl named Carrie who comes from an extremist religious family. She lives at home with her mother and she is being bullied at school by the other girls. In addition to being bullied, Carrie has these supernatural powers which she uses to her advantage. So given that the ending scene is probably one of the most referenced endings in pop culture in general, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this. Even though this book is classified as horror, this read more sad to me than anything else. I really felt bad for Carrie as a main character, and I think Stephen King did an excellent job really painting the horror of high school bullying and parental abuse, which I think was the point of the novel. I actually really enjoyed that I went into this novel knowing the ending because I feel like it added more to the thrill of the novel because I was constantly anticipating this ending. Like there's specific imagery in the book about blood, and blood is constantly being referenced throughout the novel, and I think that that's something perhaps I wouldn't have noticed had I not known how this book tackles its ending. I also really liked how you can see how Stephen King becomes who he is today. There's a lot of newspaper articles, research papers, excerpts from books sprinkled throughout the novel to really paint Carrie's story, and they all added a really interesting aspect to the narrative. I also want to point out that I read this on audio and it was narrated by Sissy Spacek, who was the OG Carrie in the 1979 version, I think it is. So I feel like this added a really interesting element to the book because she's so connected to the character of Carrie, and I feel like this added an emotional element to the book that maybe I wouldn't have gotten just by reading it. Next, I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I won't go too much into it because I have a reading vlog link somewhere up here where I read the entire book and went into my thoughts and reviewed it for you guys, non-spoiler. So if you want to know my full thoughts, you can click up ahead, but I will say that I did end up giving this book 3 stars. The next book I read was The Test by Sylvain Nouvelle. This follows a man who, upon the day of his British citizenship test, he ends up being caught in the middle of a kidnapping heist situation where he is forced to make some difficult decisions. So a lot of the reviews on this book and people that I've spoken to really mention that this was like a Black Mirror episode but in a short novelization, and I think that that description really does do the book justice, but it's definitely not a book or episode that I will be thinking about forever. Nouvelle really asked the right questions in this book and had a really engaging premise that I think would have actually worked much better if he went into the longer form novel. This book tackled questions about immigration that are not too far off from our current political climate, but I just didn't feel as engaged as I think I was really looking forward to before I read the book. Despite my reservations of this novel, she wants to come in. So sorry about that interruption, but I was just saying that despite my reservations of the novel, I still highly recommend it because I do think it brings up interesting points, and I will definitely be picking up more from this author in the future. The next book I finished was my most anticipated read of the year, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. This book follows a woman named Addie LaRue who, upon the day of her wedding in 1724, she makes a deal with the devil in order to essentially have freedom. However, as with most deals with these evil dark spirits. There is a twist, and in order to achieve this freedom that Addie so desperately wants, every time she meets someone and leaves their sight of vision or leaves the room, the people inside the room will completely forget about her. So I won't go too far into details about this one either, because I do have an entire spoiler-free vlog linked up above where I go into my thoughts on the matter and why I didn't give this one the full 5 stars that I thought I was going to give it. And the last book I read in the month of October is another Stephen King novel, The Dark Half. This follows an author-writer named Thad Beaumont, who is kind of unsuccessful in his writing career and therefore created this different persona named George Stark, who wrote an extremely successful violent crime series of books. There is a scenario where people very close to Thad are being murdered, and Thad works together with the police chief in order to figure out what the hell is going on. So I did really like this, as I generally tend to like all Stephen King novels, but this definitely wasn't my favorite one. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I went into this book thinking that there would be an interesting discussion about authors and their work. If you didn't know, Stephen King does dedicate this book to Richard Bachman, which is his surname when he first started writing novels. But this was just too weird for me, and I don't mean this in like a positive light. I think Stephen King does a lot of great work with weird subjects, and I think that this one was just too weird for me. Partly I think this is because I really did not like the main character of Thad Beaumont. I thought he was quite boring, but I also feel like Stephen King didn't really want to make us care about this main character. And based on the fact that this novel is kind of representative of Stephen King's life, I think, what does that say about how King views himself as an author, I think is really interesting. But from what I've read of Stephen King's book in the past, he puts a lot of an excruciating amount of detail into this book, and you only realize it at the end that all this detail makes you like the characters of the book more. It makes you actually care about the plot of the novel. But in this one, I feel like it just didn't happen. There were 2 characters that I really enjoyed: Liz, which is Thad Beaumont's wife, and Alan, which is the police chief that Thad works with. They were probably the most interesting and engaging characters of the novel. I think he did a good job with the actual horror elements of the book, especially the scenes with George Stark. I think were really creepy. I did listen to this on audio, as I do with most Stephen King novels, so because of that it was quite spooky. I think the narrator did a good job. Overall, it just wasn't the one for me. And that's everything I've read so far in the month of October, but I am in the middle of a couple of books. So as you might be aware, me and Danny over at Current Chapter are hosting a Dune-along. It was for the movie coming out in November, but
Put a finger down if you created a whole read-along surrounding a movie's release and then the movie gets postponed.
Here we are. But I am 50% of the way through it, so I am at page 300. So that will be reviewed at the end of the month for sure, and I will probably have a vlog for it. So I also started Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer today, so you will also see this at the end of the month. And I also started the audiobook for The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. So these 3 you will definitely get reviews by the end of the month. And these plus Kingdom of the Wicked are all the books I read in the month of October up until now. And that's it. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these books. Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I don't know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Bye!